Hello and welcome to another episode of The Hollywood Knitter. My name is Allison and I'm recording on Saturday, August 31st from my home in Los Angeles, California. How is everyone doing? It is, well, in theory it's the tail end of summer, but not really so much here in California. We are pretty warm, pretty much all of July and into August. It's 90 degrees outside today, and that's about 32 degrees Celsius, I think. So it's pretty warm. Hits that temperature pretty much every day. And so, of course, I'm going to wear a sweater while I'm recording. Let's get right into FO so I can talk about this beautiful sweater I'm wearing and then probably take it off. I finished my Rhinebeck sweater. This is the Wintersol by Jennifer Steingass. And I'm gonna stand up a little bit so you guys can see it. Great view of me, right? It has cool details on the sleeves and also the hem. Oh, see my beautiful color underneath? You'll see that in a minute. I love it. It is probably, is it my first color work? It's I think it might be my first color work sweater. And as I said, I made it for Rhinebeck. And I knit it so fast. I started this on July 1st and I finished on August 24th. So less than 2 months, which for me is really fast, considering I had to do a lot of knitting on this. Now, my yarn is supposedly a DK, though I think it's a little smaller than that. And my yarn is a Kickstarter I got. The brown is 100% yak. Both the dark brown and the main body, the light brown. And I picked this up on a Kickstarter from a guy who lives in Mongolia and did a Kickstarter to help get some of the yarn out. So I have some yak, I have some camel, and cashmere I picked up from that. So I still actually have a lot left. This whole sweater is only 1,200 yards or so. And the orange I actually picked up at Stitches West last year, not Stitches West, Stitches SoCal? Stitches SoCal. And the orange is Romy to Me, which is a 50% alpaca, 50% wool. That ended up doing really well. The gauge is slightly larger. It's a slightly thinner yarn than the yak, but not so much you can tell. So yeah, I love the tree motif. I think that's perfect for Rhinebeck, and I love the colors. Obviously, anyone who knows me knows I love orange, and I just love the neutral of it. And the sleeves, I ended up some people like omit the details, and I went with long sleeves, and I did the detail in both. Now, what I love about this sweater is there were a ton of these projects knit. So I went through on Ravelry and basically wrote down all the different mods that people had done. And then proceeded to see if I was going to do them or not. And I ended up, because here I have my patterns. I still print out my patterns. It's easier for me. I like to have it. This one is a lot of pages. But here's where I wrote down like all the mods. So the mods I ended up doing is I did German short rows instead of regular short rows, which I pretty much do German short rows now anytime they call for short rows. And then I also skipped the decreases, a second round of decreases on the neckline. I know a lot of people, when they do these yoke sweaters, they complain about puffiness in the back, and I don't really have any of that, which is awesome. Because my gauge, I did gauge swatch, and my gauge was different, I ended up following the size for the 50.5 inch, and the recommended ease for the sweater from the designer is, I think, 2 to 4 inches. And so I was hoping by knitting the 50.5 inch bust that I would get a 48 inch bust, so get roughly 4 inches, because I'm a 44. And that didn't really happen. This sweater, in case you can't tell, pretty much has 0 to maybe half an inch of ease. My gauge must have tightened up when I washed it. And I did wash the swatch, but swatches lie, and I didn't make a giant swatch. But I'm still happy with the sweater. This kind of fit is how I like my sweaters. The only thing is the top of the sleeves are a little tighter than potentially I would like. I usually like a little more room. There's like no room in them. But overall, that's not a big deal. It's totally wearable, it's already really warm, so I think we'll be fine. I'm wearing a tank top under it, so I'll be able to wear like a thin t-shirt at Rhinebeck under it, and I should be fine. So I did end up knitting the yoke multiple times. So when I did my gauge swatch, I thought that my row yardage was much smaller, that I would have to increase the motif in order to get the right depth here. And I pretty much did that. So I did 2 of these extra kind of things here, and then I measured it, and it was too long. It was gonna be too long. So I ended up ripping that back. So I knit like, I don't know, 15 or so extra rows. And so I had to rip all that back, which is fun in color work to rip back, just by the way. And then knit it again. And then, because how this is knitted is you pick up here and then you knit up, cast off, and this is an I-cord cast off, which I really like, and then pick up and you knit the body down. So I picked up, I knit the body down, I went down, and then I tried it on, and the yoke was just not good. It was gappy, it was like too much fabric, it was too just blah. It was not gonna work. Now, that was because because I'm a color work relative newbie and I don't do a lot of color work, I know a lot of people say they go up a size in color work in terms of needles. So the body was knit on US 6s and I went up to a 7 for the color work. I did not need to do that at all. So after I knit the whole body, I have this motif at the bottom, and I did this on the 6s, not changing, and to see how it looked, and it looked perfectly fine. So I, luckily, because I knit this portion was top down, I just ripped this back out. I hadn't woven in any ends yet because I've learned my lesson to not do that until I try everything on. And I ripped all the color work back down and then knit it all back on a 6. And I did change where the decreases were on the motif in one location, because it called for like a lot, not a lot, but twice as much decreasing like right at the neck. And instead of doing that, I just put one of those decreases down so it was even all the way. Like touching myself, it's so pretty. And it worked really well. And I really, really like it. So this yoke pretty much was knit 3 times. But it looks great, and it still didn't take me that long, and I'm still done. So super, super happy with it. And I'm going to strip off right now because, as I said, it's a very warm sweater. Majority of it is 100% yak. Real quick, and then I'm going to show you my floats because I'm so proud of my floats. Okay. Woo, you get my tank toppy beautifulness. Anyways, look at how lovely they are. Oops, I got another end I have to snip right there. I did find when I knit the first one, or the yoke the first and second time, I was holding a yarn in both hands, but I could not keep my tension that way. I couldn't. So when I knit it the third time, I just went ahead and dropped the yarn and picked it up every single time, the color I was using, because then I was able to make sure I got the right tension on the yarn. And then in the few locations, like when I do the sleeve, I always tend to maybe not have enough here where you can see I have a nice tight line where when I knit, because I knit magic loop, tight line where you can see where the magic loop was. But I was better able to control it, and then when I blocked it, it went great. So super pleased, super warm, super nice. I had, because I finished so quickly, thoughts of potentially trying to do another sweater for Rhinebeck, but I'm not. I think I'm gonna wear this sweater and then bring another one that I finished this year and wear those. So yeah, so this is, as I said, the Wintersal by Jennifer Steigash. She has beautiful color work projects. She has a ton of them. Very, very well written pattern, very detailed, had no problems following it, lots of information, a really good schematic. I was able to, even though my gauge was off, I was able, based on having a lot of measurements, to be able to make sure I was getting the right measurements. Though honestly, once I finished the yoke and the body, I didn't measure the sleeves, or I might have not have decreased quite at the same rate that was recommended. But whatever. So that was my biggest. One good thing about it being crazy, crazy hot is I blocked this last weekend and I do a full soak on it. So it was full of water and I just did a squeeze and I put it outside on my patio and the sun, and it was dry in like 2 hours. I flipped it at one point because it was drying much faster on the top than it was on the bottom. But yeah, that's one great thing about it being hot as Hades, is that knitwear will dry really fast outside. So that was my biggest FO. I'm going to show you another one that I sort of cast on this week actually and finished. So years ago, and I probably had this yarn, made this yarn. I carried it with me when I moved here, and I've lived in this house for 6 years. So I easily cut this t-shirts for t-shirt yarn to do something with it, and had it in a box that I moved for years, and it had been bugging me because I ran across it a few months ago. So I had bought like a super giant hook with the idea that I was going to make a rug, and I did, finally. So this is my crocheted t-shirt, recycled t-shirt rug. And I basically just chained and then did single crochet all the way, and yeah. You can see I have lots of colors. I just happen, each one of these rows of colors and in some is just basically a t-shirt. And how you make t-shirt yarn, or how I made it, is I basically just cut off from the arms up, and then there's things online that will show you how you basically create the tube of yarn and then do it up. One of the things about when you use t-shirt yarn, which I didn't realize as I was crocheting with it, is that because you are cutting off a knit weave, there's all these little tiny little pieces of cotton that get everywhere. Like I was like covered in just multicolored cotton. So I actually washed this morning to try to get some of that out, and it got most of it out. Bad thing is I had hoped to put this in front of my front door. My kitty's having a asthma attack. I will give her some medicine later. It's too thick. It's very thick t-shirts and crochet. So it doesn't, my door can't open, basically. There's not enough of a gap on the bottom of the door. So I'm gonna have to find a new spot for this. I think maybe I'll put it in front of my patio door to kind of step on it. But I wanted the idea of a t-shirt, the idea of a t-shirt rug or any kind of rag rug is these are really easy to throw in the washer and dryer. So sorry for the break. My phone got a call because I'm getting slammed with robocalls, scam calls. It's just so many. I get like 4, 5, 6, 7. One number, or one message, I got it called 20 times in 4 hours. It was insane. Anyway, so my video stopped when I got a phone call. So yeah, talking about the rad rug, super happy with it. I used most of the t-shirt yarn I had made, and I had cut up t-shirts, but I hadn't finished making them because the t-shirt yarn, making it and cutting it, it's tough. And even with the crocheting of this, I had to do this over 4 nights, not because it was hard, it's just because it hurt my hand. You're having to, there's a lot of pull, push and pull when making this. But I'm happy. I have a few more balls of yarn, or the t-shirts that I cut up. That was probably 12 of balls that I had made, and I think I have another 5 left. I have thoughts of potentially doing a little basket with the rest of them, but then after that I'm not making anymore. I don't particularly like crocheting with it. I don't particularly like the idea of then having materials in my house that I don't use. So I think what I will do is recycle shirts, send them to Goodwill when they're ready to die, or cut them up and just use them as rags, because this was a lot of stress on me when I find it, and like, I've carried this for so long and got to do something with it. And yeah, it was kind of a one-time thing. So that was my second FO. I'm gonna show you some hats I made. So I made the beeswax hat by Amy Vonderlaar, and this is one that you'd seen last time I'd started. I actually started it twice. First time I put it on 6s and it was too big, and so when I was at Zombie Apocalypse and I had a pair of 3s with me, I cast on and did it again, and I liked it better. The only thing is that it is too small for my head. It is tight, but I have a big head. I have a big head. So this will fit someone with probably a smaller normal size, or even a child. It is a charity hat. The yarn is my friend Laura's Dizzy Blonde Studios Superwash DK in the Jane colorway. And this took about half the ball, about 130 yards to do. I liked it's the beeswax hat, and you can't exactly see the pattern very well in this. This is probably too busy in the camera here. It's not as busy in person. You can see the motif. But then I wanted to finish up the ball, so I cast on the Violet Waffle Hat by Haldora J, which is a free pattern, and it's just a very simple waffle pattern. And I used the rest of the yarn and just made a little beanie, lots of bright colors. So this took about a month to do because I did it off and on and I recast on, and then this took a week to cast to finish. And both of these will go into my bin for charity hats for donation. The other things I finished is I finished 2 pairs of socks. The first socks are my Supernova socks, and this is Knitty and Color Hardcore Sock and the Supernova. And I picked up this yarn at Maryland Sheep and Wool in 2016, and I love this yarn. I love the color. I just did a super simple, my standard toe up. I use kind of the Sockmaticians kind of formula these days, and these are for me, and I love them. It took me, I don't know, about a month. These were, my easy knitting, and I do it in spurts and spots depending on if I have a lot of knitting time at work or if I'm meetings or training or something. So that's usually what it takes me roughly, is about a month these days. Love these socks. Look how awesome they are. The other pair of socks are actually for my mother. So I've decided to start knitting more socks for my mom because I think she'll wear them. She lives in New England where it's actually cold. And I think she's kind of like a lot of us, like she has a few pairs, but they're too precious to her that I don't think she wears them enough. My cat is getting on the back of the couch. I think she's gonna jump at me. So the boyfriend has a lot of socks. I probably need some more to wear out. He probably has about 12 to 15 pairs, somewhere in that range. So I decided to start making socks for my mom. So these socks are the Socks on a Plane by Laura Linneman, and all that is a simple cable that goes up here. And I got this pattern years and years ago. I really just used it for the idea and the cable motif. And the yarn is one I picked up on D-Stash this year. It's Kim Dye Sourdough Sock, which is an 80/20 in the Paris Geller colorway. So this is one sock, obviously. And then on the other sock, the cable goes up the other side. And yeah, so I made these for my mom. And I think I'm just gonna, I have another pair of socks that I'll show you that are on the needles for her. And I think I'm just gonna give her like 2, 3, 4 pairs at Christmas this year, or when I see her soon. I see her in October. I don't know. So yeah, I love knitting socks, but I definitely don't need any more for me, even though I made a pair for me. And I need to make more for my mom. I wish my sister could wear them, but she's allergic to wool, so she can't. I could make more for my niece. She does seem to wear them, but she's growing, so I'd rather wait till she's grown. So that's all I have for FOs, but that's a lot. I have like 2 pairs of socks, 2 hats, a sweater, and a rug for 6 weeks. I think that's pretty good. It's good for me anyways. So what did I cast on? I'll show you my socks since I mentioned them. So of course, once I finished socks, another ones have to go into my purse, and I've gotten a fair amount of knitting on them. I only cast these on last week, I think, and I'm already onto the leg. And so I knit my socks toe up. Look at these crazy colors. Again, simple toe up stockinette. This yarn though is pretty cool. This is yarn I picked up as part of the Tits Out collective that was done as a fundraiser last year it was started, and I follow her, and she's a yarn dyer in England, and I'm blanking on it, but a bunch of other dyers dyed different colorways, inspired by the colorways she had done, and a portion of all of the sales went to charity. And so I picked up a skein from Inked Sheep Fibers, who was a new to me dyer. And yeah, I'm really loving it. This is a 80/20, and I love how the color is kind of spiraling, and then of course when I increased for the gusset, it started to kind of almost stripe, and now I'll be back to spiraling. But I love the crazy colors. I think my mom will like these, and it's really pretty to knit. And I had a training this week, so I got a lot done. I pretty much got the whole foot done. So the way it goes for me is I have to cast on the toe, and then the foot is mindless, even up through the gusset, but then the heel I do at home because it requires more thought. Then after the heel, of course, then we're back to easy knitting. So that is on the needles in my favorite pumpkin bag, even though it doesn't feel like it. Fall is coming, and this is from Jenny Kitchen Counter Crafter, who makes awesome bags. The other project I cast on was from my queue, because I pretty much knit for my queue for projects. Yeah, and I cast on for, let's see if I have a picture that I can show you. Yeah, the Eyeball Shawl by Stephen West. I picked up the yarn for this at the Loopy U when I went to the Fling in 2017. So all I have pretty much right now is the iris, and I've started on the rest of the eyeball, which is going to be green. So the center is going to be black, and then green, kind of matching my eyes. It's going to be, this is Julie Spins MCN in Pesto, and then the outside is going to be this kind of Into the World, and this has got like, it's white with like green, and then the edging is like a brioche, and I'm going to do the black with the white, or the black with the green probably. I'm not sure, depends how much I have left. So yeah, this is pretty mindless. I actually probably I need to increase to a bigger needle size, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited to be knitting, and that's all I'm knitting on right now. Trying to be a little monogamous. I shouldn't say that. I actually picked up my linen stitch blanket. Excuse me, itchy nose. My linen stitch blanket, which I haven't worked on in months, and I put on, I don't know, 10 rows or so, but I'm not going to show it to you because it's not that much progress since last time. I'll show it on the next podcast. So I'm feeling like I want to work on that. So I'm saying so a lot. I apologize. I will be working on that for the next month or so, probably, in conjunction with my, my shawl. Like I said, I had thought of doing a sweater. So how I'm knitting this year is, so at the beginning of the year, I did the Make 9, which a lot of people have. And in my queue, anything in my queue is something I have yarn for. And I've like figured out from my stash, figured out a pattern, put them in my queue. And for the Make 9, I picked 9 in that queue that I wanted to do. And I've done 6 of the 9. The eyeball shawl makes the 7th, so I only have to do a sweater. Which sweater is it? It is the Donner by Elizabeth Doherty that I have some Lindy chain for, and then I have a shawl pattern. So I'm going to do those 2 before the end of the year. Probably start the sweater, I think it will be to travel knitting, so I think I'll probably start it beginning of October and give me 3 months to finish it, and then have this shawl done and then the other shawl. And I've sort of been ruminating on what I want to do for next year. And I've been looking at my stash, and I have a fair amount of yarn. Not a ton, but a lot. And I think I'm going to do something similar, where I'm going to go through my stash and create projects into my queue and try to knit from my stash mostly for another year. I do buy yarn, and I have bought some yarn this year, mostly random and single skeins, which is fine, and try to do that. I do probably need to pick up another sweater. I want to do another sweater or two next year. I think I'm not out of sweater quantities. I plan on doing a fingering weight sweater, like a fade or something, which I might just need a color or two to fill in from what I have in my stash. And then I think I want to pick out another sweater and perhaps buy the yarn at Rhinebeck this year is my goal. So that's kind of my plans. Yeah. It'll be kind of boring for next time. I doubt I'll finish my shawl. I'll probably have socks, and I'll show you my linen stitch blanket, which I want to get work done. I keep itching and wanting to cast on for a fingering weight, crocheted, scrappy sock blanket, but I won't let myself do that until I finish my linen stitch blanket, which is probably still 2 years out. But in the meantime, I keep all my little balls of sock yarn on my table, and it's pretty and it's beautiful. So yeah, that's kind of all my knitting. I wanted to show that to you and get it all in the podcast so I can put it all away. I think I already have it all photographed, so that's good. In terms of gossip, not too much. I got a haircut. My hair was just bugging me. It was so hot, and all I was doing was throwing it back in a ponytail and throwing it back, and it just felt heavy. So I went in and asked for a haircut, and she actually cut it shorter than I expected, but that was great because now I actually am really happy with it. And so you can actually see my natural wave that comes out when it's short, and it's off my neck, which is that's why I ended up being too short. Because when I was showing her the styles I was thinking of, and then she started cutting it, she's like, well, what do you want in the back? And I'm like, I want it off my neck. And that's why it ended up being short. In my mind, I envisioned shorter back and longer in the front, and that didn't happen, but I'm totally happy with it. So it's good. Work has been annoying. Yeah, I'm in a slower time in terms of my construction project. It's finishing up. We made our big milestone in July, put my reservoir back in service. Now I'm at the end of a construction project, which is finishing up paperwork, finishing up all of your change order negotiation, all the little ticky-tacky things. Like if you've ever done any kind of construction, whether it be like home improvement or things like that, like you get the majority of the work done, and then that last 5%, like the fixing little nick here or that little spot here, or et cetera, that last 5% takes inordinate amount of time because most of the crews have left, and you got to get people to come back and fix things. And yeah, so that will probably be on this project until another 2-3 months. And then I have another big project that just got awarded that I'll be starting up. That's a design build project for some water treatment in Los Angeles. And that's a big project. That's like a $300 million project that I'll be managing. So that's kind of exciting. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. Really just one series of an audiobook. I am a big fantasy fan, and there's a lot of authors and series that I've been following for many years. Like the Christine Feehan, or I used to do like the Anita Blake series, though that just went downhill and I have stopped reading that one. Or any number. One of the ones that I had started reading in college in 94 was the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. And they're huge books, and he started putting them out so infrequently, and it's such a involved world and storyline that I wanted to wait till it finished, basically. And that took from when he wrote the first one, and then he actually passed away, and somebody else had to finish up the series. I think it was like 20 years. So I finally, this year, started from the beginning listening to him. And I probably had read the first 6 or 7 books. I think there's 14 books. Now I'm doing them all in audiobook, and I am up to book 9. And it's a serious commitment because each audiobook is anywhere from 24 to 40 plus hours. I looked, and it's interesting, on Wikipedia, they add up all the audiobook time. And so at the end of the series, having listened to all of them, I will have listened to 19 days 5 hours worth of audiobooks for this one series. That's a lot of hours. So it takes me a long time to get through these audiobooks. Like, yeah. So that's The Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I highly recommend it. I really enjoy it. As I said, I'm up to book 9. I have 5 more books to go. But it is a fantasy book series. I have been watching Netflix. I'm continuing my love of British procedurals. So on Netflix, on the Instant Watch, I am slowly working my way, continuing to work my way through Midsummer's Murders, which is my total palate cleanser. When I am fried and I don't know what to watch and I just want something easy, I watch an episode of Midsummer Murders, which is set in the UK, and it's kind of a it's you know, there's a crime and 2 people solve it, and it's an hour and a half. There are, I think, 19 seasons, and I think I'm on season 9, and each season has anywhere between 4 to 8 hour-and-a-half episodes. So doing that, and then I also get the video or DVD sent to me, mainly to get newer movies and things like that. And I've been alternating and working my way through Vera, which is another British procedural series with Brenda Blethyn. Blethyn? I think it is. And I alternate one episode or one disc, which is 1 hour-and-a-half show, and then an actual movie. And I'm going through, and I think I'm up to season 4 that way. I watch a fair amount. One good thing about Netflix in theory is that, you can keep the DVDs as long as you want, but I get them and I feel like I have to watch them in, the next 2 or so days and send them back. So I actually watch probably between 10 to 12 discs a month. No judgment. I'm I do not have kids, and so I'm usually home in the evenings by myself and have time to watch a movie. So I get through a fair amount. And then I also watch previews of movies. And so my queue is pretty long. And if I see a preview and I like it, I add it to my Netflix queue. But my Netflix queue is long. So that movie might not come up into my actual, top of the queue for, I think it's averaging like 18 months now. So I'll get a movie and I don't remember what it was or why I wanted to get it, what it's about. And so it will be a surprise. Yeah. So I watch some random stuff that way. What else? I also recommend Derry Girls. 2nd season just dropped and I watched it, set in Northern Ireland in the 80s. Yes, the 80s. So funny. So funny. Totally recommend. And do I have anything else I had written down? I think that's it. That's kind of what's been going on. I have been figuring out what my travel plans are going to be for the upcoming few months. I've said I'm going to Rhinebeck. And as part of that, what I've decided to do is the week before Rhinebeck, my boyfriend and I are going to fly out, and with my mom and my brother, we're going to drive from Rhode Island to Niagara Falls. It is on my mom's bucket list. I've always wanted to go. And my brother and my boyfriend are going to come too. So we're going to drive out. It's like a 8-hour drive from where they live in Rhode Island. We're going to stay in Niagara Falls for 2 days, and then we're going to go up to Toronto for 2 days. The boyfriend's going to fly back from Toronto. I'm going to drive back with my family back to Rhode Island, and then from there go to Rhinebeck for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then come back on the Monday to LA and go back to work. So I'll be gone, or I'll be in that neck of the world, neck of the woods for 12 days, 11 days. So I'm excited. I have to book the rest of it. I booked our airfare, but I spend a lot of time thinking about the best place to stay, which is why they all love for me to plan a trip, because I go back and forth. So I think we're gonna get a VRBO condo in Toronto, and then I think I'm gonna splurge for like one of the nice hotels. We're staying on the Canadian side of the falls because that's the better views, and I think I'm gonna splurge on a room with a great view for my mom. And then the other trip, which also means I can't do some things, I am going to go to Morocco with my brother next April. This is going to be the same tour group that I went to India with 2 years ago. Wandering Earl Tours, which I highly recommend. And I've been wanting to do this Morocco trip, but I just couldn't pin somebody to go with me. The boyfriend can't go get away that long, and doesn't really have the interest to. He would love to go to Morocco to sit in Casablanca and basically drink. That's what he wants to do. Versus this tour, you travel around, you go to Marrakesh, you go into the desert, you ride camels, you do a lot for almost, I think it's 12 days or 13 days. But I texted my brother saying, hey, would you be interested in going? He's expressed interest, and I thought, hey, let me ask. And he said, sure. So I signed us up, and we are going in April. Very excited. And fortunately, the timing of it is the same time as my 2 normal things I do in April. So unfortunately, I will not be attending the Northern California Knitting Retreat, which really bums me out. But I'm excited about Morocco. And then I also won't be able to go to WonderCon because those are both the weekends that I will be over in Africa. But super excited. And I know I can come back, though. I am sad to break my streak of attending every retreat. But I am trying to probably go to Stitches West this year. I again was debating that it was Stitches West or my friend Martha's retreat, and I went to my friend Martha's retreat in Virginia Beach last year. But I think I'm going to try to do Stitches West this year to see all of my Northern California knitting friends that I won't be able to see at the retreat like I usually do. So that is kind of my plans. I also want to do a weekend away somewhere. I was looking for my birthday. My birthday's on Halloween, and I always take it off no matter what. And it happens to be a Thursday, coinciding with my Friday off, so I have like a 4-day work weekend. I'm thinking somewhere local to get away. And I also have nebulous plans. Like I owe my nephew a trip to Europe for his high school graduation. He just got his driver's license, but they have not gotten him a passport yet. So I was waiting. They were waiting until he turned 18, which he did in July. And now I need them to get his passport so then I can plan his trip to go to Europe. I think we're going to keep it pretty tame and do maybe the UK, the Netherlands, or UK, Spain. We're only going to go for like a week. So that's something to be up. And then also thinking of doing a Disney World trip with my niece on one of her spring breaks next year, which will be crazy, but better weather than going in the summer. And because of the way the summer worked out with my dad and everything, my niece and nephew didn't come to see me like they usually do. So I feel like I owe her a trip. And of course I mentioned it that way, and 10-year-olds never forget. So it's going to happen. So yeah, that's kind of what's up with me, what's going on. As I said, this weekend is actually a holiday weekend in the United States. It's Labor Day weekend. I am home alone today. The boyfriend and his son went to join his brother in Catalina. His brother has a boat, lives in San Diego, and he goes to Catalina for a week every year right around this time. So they were going for a pretty quick trip. I dropped them off at the ferry last night, and they're coming back tomorrow morning. And he had asked me to go, but I was like, you know what? I could use a Saturday. I needed to clean my house. I wanted to podcast. I wanted to update all my Ravelry and have a quiet day. And we're already going to a soccer game tomorrow. We have season tickets to the soccer team in LA, LAFC. And that takes a lot because you go and, tailgate, watch the game, that kind of thing. So that's kind of my weekend. And then Monday, I'm sure we'll just be quiet and relaxing and getting through. Now I'm just counting down the days until October 11th, I think I'm flying out. It'll be exciting. And I can't wait to see everybody at Rhinebeck. But that's still 6 weeks away. I'm sure I'll put another podcast in before then. Probably. Anyways, I hope everyone is having a wonderful summer. If you're in summer, or winter, if you're in winter, I hope it's getting fall, right? It's getting fall someplace. Not here, but I need to be able to wear my yak sweater in October, which I'm sure I will be able to in Rhinebeck. I shouldn't say that. It's been hot some years, so It is a possibility I won't be able to, but I'm hoping. So that's it. That's all I've got. I feel like I've been a little rambly today, a little excited. As I said, I've been wanting to podcast for a while. I meant to podcast 2 weeks ago and it just didn't happen. And then I was like, well, I might as well wait till I finish my sweater. And I finished my sweater, and then I just need quiet time to do it. And that was today. So I hope everyone is awesome. That's what I hope. I hope everyone is loved, and yeah, I'm just about to be crazy. I'm going to say goodbye there. All right. If you're looking for me, I'm Allison1031 on Ravelry and Instagram. I've been kind of off Instagram. It's been a little crazy knitting wise. So I had taken a little bit of a break from it. So I'm sporadically there. I'm not a huge poster. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. This is like really a little wooey today. Anyways, that's a wrap from Hollywood, where fantasy meets fiber and dreams are knit. Bye, everybody.